going on, everybody, and welcome back to this is actually a briefing, live briefing, of the potential severe weather to come over the next couple of days here on the Royal NYR 54 channel. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. I'd like to highlight a couple of the things that we could be talking about going over the next couple of days. So, we have two marginals and a no severe over the next couple of days across portions of the Eastern CONUS. In particular, I just gotta make sure, yeah. Okay, perfect. So, particularly with the, day one, you can see there's a marginal from the Great Lakes all the way down into the Gulf Coast, actually the central Gulf Coast, clipping a portion of Florida Panhandle all the way into Louisiana and back up through Ohio and Lake Erie. So, with this, you're going to be talking about damaging wind risk. This is going to be linear. There's really not going to be too much to come out of this. There is no tornado threat. There is no hail threat. It's just a big 5% for wind across the board. So we'll see what they say. With a large-scale upward trough over the Great Plains, Mississippi Valley, an initial mid-upper speed max will rotate north-northeast from the Illinois and Indiana into southern Ontario. Pronounced cyclogenesis is expected through tonight from Lake Huron vicinity towards James Bay. The trailing cold front will continue to move east across the Ohio Valley to central Gulf regions. Poor lapse rates are expected within the majority of the warm sector, and the richer low-level moisture, boundary layer dew points in the low mid-70s, will be confined to the Gulf Coast. Thus, buoyancy will be rather shallow and limited in magnitude to the north in the Ohio Valley, where mid-level Cape is less than 250, with moderate buoyancy. 1,500 to 2,500 mid-level Cape expected near the Gulf Coast. So, the front that's supposed to drop down today is really not going to have any ingredients to do much except for in the immediate Gulf Coast. So that is likely where we will see the only instances of severe weather today, even though the 5% goes up and down through Kentucky, Tennessee, and Ohio. I highly doubt that you'll see a lot there ending up today. So let's look at the day two now, and day two is interesting because at this point the model runs have confidence that there's going to be a second low pressure system developing, and in this case there is a big 2% tornado risk for the portions of the South Carolina and North Carolina coasts and inland. So that is definitely interesting that we're having a different low pressure form, and that therefore, henceforth, you're going to have a tornado risk, although it is small. Size doesn't matter, as we all know. So 2% for tornadoes and 5% for damaging winds. Again, no hail threat, although there was no hail threat the other day in North Carolina associated with remnants of beta, and there was a 4-inch hail supercell. So, you know, we don't talk about that. In particular, the low pressure is really supposed to develop and then move quickly. It's supposed to haul to the north and east, and eventually we could be talking about some severe weather actually up in the northeast for day 3, even though the SPC shows absolutely nothing going on over there. So let's go back to this and let's look at the day 3, which is honestly a joke. So you see there's a general thunderstorm risk over portions of the Great Lakes and then up and down the East Coast with that cold front. Nothing up here, which is honestly funny because the model run guidance shows that something wants to form up here. And this is interesting because this has been shown over the past several runs in varying strength, but this has been shown over the past several different model runs of the GFS, and particularly even the NAM as we've gotten closer in the NAM range for this. So you can see something big decides to implode from up there. Let's just go back to this. So, mature upper cyclones forecast to be centered near the Alabama-Georgia border early Wednesday morning within the base of an upper broad troughing, covering much of the central and eastern CONUS. This upper low is expected to move northeastward through the Carolinas throughout the day and off the mid-Atlantic coast early Thursday morning. Surface low associated with this upper cyclone will likely be the period over South Carolina, before gradually moving northeastward off to the North Carolina coast by Wednesday evening. Some modest low-level moisture may be ahead of the low, but lapse rates will be poor, and widespread crowds and precip will limit heating. Consequently, buoyancy is expected to be modest, limiting the potential for persistent and deep updrafts. There is low probability that enough of the warm sector will remain onshore ahead of the surface low, resulting in a thermodynamic environment more supportive of severe thunderstorms. However, that scenario is not currently supported by most recent guidance. So, you can see it's not really just, there isn't really anything forecast to be able to maintain intensity for severe thunderstorms, which is definitely interesting as the surface low up in the northeast, I feel like, is something to watch, but you never know. So at this point, we're going to take a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for the United States, and as you can see, big cold dips sitting in. In fact, I need to open something here. Big cold dips sitting in over the Appalachians. Behind the cold front, you can see a lot of low pressure sitting in. I'm just going to pull this off to my side here. That's not what I wanted to do at all. So you can see big low pressure sitting in right here. And that's going to be something that's going to just persist over this particular area over the next week or so. So you can particularly see here, it isn't as much in the northeast as some might expect. So with the low moving off this way, you'd expect some of the cold would drip up. But no, it's going to mainly stay over the southern Appalachians. And even Florida might see some temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Who knows? Seth, you might need to reload your Discord. I'm just going to tell you that. So you can see that through everything, you're going to have a big cold dip, and it remains hot in the west. Fire weather is going to have another spike in intensity as hot and dry conditions persist over the Pacific Northwest and surroundings. So at this point, I'm going to move over to the model run side of things, and we're going to take a look at a few different things. So let's start off with today's risk, and we'll highlight something going on with, I did not want to click this, I want to click this. Let's start with today's risk and highlight some things that might be going on with that if I move over to the Ohio Valley sector. So you can see here, the potential for severe weather along the front is possible today, highlighted by the marginal. However, it will not be much. So you can see some scattered convection, particularly in the southern portions of the states, ahead of the front, is going to happen. This is by 0Z, with time where heating is less. But you can see with the front moving through, you're going to have several different opportunities, and you can see marginal severe with pretty poor sounding, to be completely honest. Vertical wind barbs, really bad lapse rates, less than 1,000 K, but not that much shears. So you can see the environments just aren't completely there today. That will be conducive for severe weather development. This my guinea pig, I think, fell over on himself. So that, in combination with the lack of moisture that's going to be going on from Tennessee through the Ohio Valley, you're gonna have a lot of difficulty getting severe thunderstorms to develop up there. But it is definitely possible along the front, as really you do have enough moisture, and keep in mind that shear is just jutting across the board. In fact, I want to go to the continental sector, and we're going to take a look at shear. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar, and it takes a while to load, but as you can see, there is definitely some sort of jut in terms of the jet. And then as it goes along today, really everything is behind the front, so the wind energy won't be able to do as much in particular. But you can see it actually cuts, and here comes your sub low. So this is going to be developing later on, but you can see it dips, and energy is just persistent over those portions of the Ohio Valley. Take a look at the 850, and as you can see, again, not a whole lot of energy, and as I've mentioned, with the low Cape values that you're going to get up and down the board today, you need wind energy. And you just don't have that as much today. Maybe some over the Ohio Valley, so you can see 48 knots of 850 is sufficient. But with low Cape, it may just not be enough. And as you can see, just up and down the coast, there just isn't much at all. 66 in Canada, okay. But as you can see, 850 actually implodes over portions of the mid-Atlantic states, and around New York City, it actually implodes. So you're going to have wind energy there. Whether or not you have sufficient moisture to be able to do anything up there, still unknown. But right now, you can see there's a lot of moisture. Rather, there is a lot of wind energy. You could definitely get some severe weather out of it, but only time will tell. So at this point, we're going to take a look at the NAM 3K. And we'll look at wind energy again before we look at any preset values. So you can see, again, that dip in the jet and the good amount of wind energy that's coming out of that is still present. And then over the next few days, you can see as it heads towards the northeast, interesting values getting into the 100 teens in terms of 500 millibar shear over the next few days. And in particular, you can see just along the front here, it implodes over the northern parts of the United States. So the risks highlighted are for the southern portions of the states, or for the southern mid-Atlantic states. So North Carolina, South Carolina is where the low pressure is forming, and then beyond moves off to the north and east. But interesting shear amounts, so that'll definitely need to be monitored going over the next few days. So we could get some potential severe weather, even though it isn't highlighted as of now up in the northeast. So you can see 850, again, persistent energy, and even off the coasts of the New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and Hatteras, really up to Long Island, you can see 50 plus knots of 850 millibar shears. So it is definitely, again, sufficient at this moment. But really, you need the moisture and whether or not that the front moves slowly enough in order for you to get the combination of moisture and wind energy for sufficient severe weather up in the northeast. It's still going to be difficult, and I think that's why the SPC hasn't highlighted severe possibilities for this area over the next few days, as moisture is still not too much. So you can see 850. Okay. So you can see as the low moves off to the north and east, 850 just dies inside as it gets towards Maine. Timo. So as it gets towards Maine, you can see the 850 just dies inside. I don't understand why there are no severe weather possibilities. So it does move off the coast fairly quickly, I will give it that, but still something trails. So you never know what actually can come out of that. We'll have to keep an eye on it. So let's just take a look at precip type at this point, just to get a general idea of what the 3K has in mind for today and following. So you can see, looks to be just basically rain showers over the Great Lakes area because you don't get enough convection. You can see a lot more scattered thunderstorm activity, and making sure I'm on the right run. You can see a lot more scattered thunderstorm activity going on over the southern states today, and particularly off the coast of the Gulf Coast. You could see some. So then over the next few days, you can see the second low forms. And as it moves off to the north and east, you can see a lot of rain. That's going to pose a flash flooding threat, which I'll also get to later on. And see a lot of rain going along the front as it moves off to the north and east, so that's something to watch as well. In terms of rain, let's take a look at the total accumulated rainfall over this model run. And as you can see, as it moves off to the north and east, you do get upwards of 2 inches of rain, which is not as much as some might expect from this, but it is still definitely a lot. And for those areas, particularly I'm thinking in the northeast, that are in a severe drought at this point, they're in extreme drought rather, the rain will be of benefit. However, too much at a time is going to cause flash flooding, so that's also another concern that we're going to have to watch out for. So you can see even 3 inches of rain as 4 inches of rain. 4.5 inches of rain as you get in towards the higher elevations of New York State. So, something interesting to watch, and then the East Coast do East Coast things. I'm going to ignore it. So, the rainfall amounts are going to be helpful for the Northeast as we are in a decent drought at this point, and particularly for the higher elevations of New Hampshire and Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Throwback to how they were under a elevated fire weather risk the other day. The rain will be of solid benefit for those areas. In terms of severe weather parameters, let's take a look at surface-based CAPE, and as you can see today, the heating will be present along the front over portions of Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, etc. So, you can see there will be sufficient moisture to get rain, and this is rain that is not needed for those areas that were also impacted by what was Hurricane Laura at the time. So as you can see going across the run, scattered CAPE over the Northeast, but really not too much. So you can see instances of 1,000 on the Pennsylvania, New Jersey border as you go up and along. This is Tuesday, mid-afternoon, but then it just dies out and you really can't get any other CAPE, although whatever this might be, I have no idea. As you can see, most of the CAPE remains off the coast, and Baja continues to do Baja things. In terms of capping, because this has been an issue, we'll just take a look at a few things. So tomorrow, so as you can see tonight, might not be too many issues getting severe thunderstorms until you get towards the late night, in which capping just decides to go through the window. But you can see tomorrow afternoon, you can see very little capping up and down the East Coast. So that's going to be something to watch, except for off Long Island. That's unfortunate. But you can see not a lot of capping going up and down the East Coast until it gets towards later in the night. And as you can see, even at 9Z, not a lot of capping there. And as I've mentioned, with the low pressure moving up and away, you're going to get embedded supercells that could drop brief, weak tornadoes. So if you can get sufficient ingredients, not a lot of cap, and a good amount of wind energy, like right now. So as you can see, even as you go into, this is 5 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so as you go towards that time, you can see up and down the coast, really not a whole lot of capping, and any of it is scattered in the teens and 20s. You could still get some severe weather scares over the night on Tuesday into your day on Wednesday. Bulk shear, so if we take a look at that, you can see just the dip over the plains right now. But as you can see, as it goes along, a lot of energy present, 120 knots of 0 to 6. Even as you get towards New York City, it's in the high 80s in terms of values. So, again, energy is there. Will the low actually produce? Different question. Because particularly with the moisture, you don't really have all too much of it. Although you do have a good amount, it's not as much as you would want to see for a particular severe weather event. So if we take a look at dew points here, just to highlight what I'm saying here, you can see dews are in the high 60s. In fact, some instances of 70 up and down the East Coast from what I'm seeing. It's in Delaware, yeah. But you can see high 60s, but just in combination with the temperature at that time, where it's in the 70s. This is new. So I was actually accustomed to looking at older model runs where it said the dews would be good 10 degrees separate from the surface temperatures. But this is new. So the dews are really close to what the surface temperatures are at this point. So you never know. You might actually get a shot at seeing something if this capping can continue to dwindle. And if you can get enough moisture to actually jut off from the low, and you can actually get something from the storms that rotate, you could actually end up seeing something up and down the East Coast happen. All the ingredients come together at the right time. I'm going to take a look at the GFS at this point just to highlight the broader picture, and I will go into temperature and stuff at the end. So as you can see just right now, you can see that cold front extending out, and then you can see the sublow forms. And you can see a lot of storms up and down the coast. So that's definitely something to watch. That's where the SPC has highlighted their severe weather probabilities for the next for day 2. So if we go back to this, find day 2 here, you can see that's where they've highlighted their severe weather risks for the East Coast. I just woke up. You're gonna have to excuse me, ladies and gents. So as it moves up and away, you can see something happens. I don't know what this wants to do. It could just be a fat amount of rainfall. It could be some sort of organized severe threat. You can see 67 knots of surface to 3 kilometer shear. But quite frankly, it's hard to say. But if you take model consistency has been decently consistent. Model consistency has been decently consistent on this. That is the best sentence I've ever constructed. So let's click on hour 48, please. And we'll go to model trend loop. So you can see there's been something consistent with this, with something forming has either a lot of rainfall or big severe threat. So it kind of broke up for a little bit there over the 26th on the model runs, but as you can see, there is something there persistently with the idea for severe weather possibilities up through the northeast. Now, again, this is 12Z, so do you get enough heating for the time of this? I don't know. But right now, you definitely need to keep this in mind, that regardless of whether or not there will be severe weather, there's going to be a lot of heavy rainfall going up and down the East Coast over the next few days. And I need to do this, and I need to do this. So I want to take a look at total accumulated precip for the GFS. And so as you can see, it does highlight, sorry, that's a little too far. So it does tend to highlight the fact that the Northeast will be seeing a lot of rainfall. So anywhere from, I'm seeing, looks to be 1 to 3 inches of total rainfall. Wouldn't be surprised. Quite frankly, if you can get enough, of the rainfall, and particularly the mountains up there, it could get stuck. So I've seen so many instances of severe weather up in New Hampshire, where I reside over the summer, and I've seen so many instances where thunderstorms come from the south or come from the east, or come from the west. I keep getting the east and west mixed up. I am so dyslexic. Come from the west, and they just get stuck on the mountains. And that kills the storm. But in this case, persistent rainfall would still be of such. So you need to keep that in mind. If you happen to live up in the mountains, you could see a decent flash flood threat. And even for areas I know like Burlington, St. Johnsbury, up and down the coast, you never know. There could be some sort of decent flooding threat. In terms of what happens total, some other lows trail. And then you can see another low that trails, but this is way in the future. But you can see a good amount of rainfall will be happening for the folks in the Northeast, which is much needed at this point, as there will be a drought. So that's something to keep in mind. If we take a look at PWAT, this will be for the severe weather event in particular. I just want to take a look at it. So you can see there actually is a rich amount of moisture to the tone of 2.22 inches of precipitable water up and down the East Coast, anywhere from, I'm seeing Florida, where the low extends all the way up into Providence, Massachusetts. So you can see with everything going on here, the moisture is there, and I've seen a lot of people throughout multiple different weather servers at this point saying this isn't going to do anything because there's not sufficient moisture. That seems to be incorrect. There does seem to be a good amount of sufficient moisture to provide for thunderstorm development. Now, the question is there going to be enough heating, and will the wind energy and moisture energy come in contact with the cold front at the right time? Good question. That's still uncertain, and that's why I haven't really said anything up until now. The runs had been showing it for the past 4 or 5 days, and I didn't want to say anything because I had a feeling that there was going to be a lot of change. But right now, as you can see, there isn't too much. There has been a good amount of change, but it still seems consistent with the fact that there will be moisture and wind energy for severe weather development over the next few days. As it moves off towards the north and east, you can see P-watt values remain, but the low pressure just does its own thing and zooms off towards northern and eastern portions of Quebec. That's not Quebec. I think that's Quebec. I don't know. I completely forgot my Canadian geography. So at this point, I want to turn to temperatures and temperature anomalies, as this is something that I've been watching over the whatever this is. This is something I've been watching over portions of different model runs, but I didn't really want to put temperature anomaly on any other model run. So as you can see here, cold front is definitely visible, and then after that, big cold dip for majority of the Eastern CONUS. You can see there is a big cold dip going on, all the way from Ontario down through Florida and Panhandle, Florida. Even portions of southern Florida are in the blues, which is not a typical thing for the southern portions of Florida, because it's usually very hot there. Multiple people can speak from experience. So a bigger, more centralized cold dip over Missouri and portions of Illinois. But after that, you can see the cold dip just kind of meanders. Doesn't do a whole lot except for in localized spots where it peaks at 10 to 15 degrees below average, maybe even 20 degrees below average at points. Then it gets hot again, and then you can see another low just swoops down from Canada, and another big cold blast. You can see anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees below average there. That one just sits over portions of the U.S. Or portions of the Northeast, and then 32 above over portions of South Dakota. In fact, I'm going to save this image really quickly. So in particular, you're going to be talking about a lot of cooler temperatures behind the cold dip, or behind the low pressure. So expect to have to bring out the jackets again. As we know, for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic last week, there was a big cold dip where we saw temperatures in the 30s. I saw down here. Freeze warnings, frost advisories were very proficient across portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, but that might become another case for the Northeast again as we go into the next few days. So, wrapping things up here, I just want to go back over to I think this is the one I want. So yeah, the 850 millibar temperature anomaly, just to get a good idea of what we're talking about here. And you can see behind the front, there is the cold, and then behind everything, you can see one big pocket of cold. That ends up dying out and giving way to the heat, and then it gives way to the cold again. So you can see negative 14 Celsius. And again, the GFS is cold biased, so it's hard to point a finger particularly at the GFS in terms of how everything's going to play out. That's why I use different model runs for this, so particularly the UK Met. However, I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to use the UK Met for this particular video, as that's not the main focus. But in particular, you're going to see there's a possibility for severe weather and stuff like that up and down the coast over the next few days, as well as the threat for cooler temperatures as it goes up and down into the Northeast. Wrapping this up here, just the general concept of everything. If you happen to live up and down the East Coast, you need to know if you have any precautions to take for flooding measures, as there is a possibility for some substantial flooding, flash flooding over up and down the East Coast, all where the rain will be taking place, and as several model runs have been showing, flash flooding anywhere from South Carolina to Maine. So you never know. We'll have to see how everything really takes place. And in particular, if you happen to live in a flood-prone area, you need to anywhere from really the mountains down into the low-lying areas near the shorelines. You need to know your flooding measures and precautions that you need to take happen flooding become a risk. And always make sure to have your jackets on standby in case anything Morgan shouldn't be in school. I'm off. Always be sure to have your jackets ready for the cold dip that should come over the next 3 to 5 days. That's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this severe weather briefing. If you guys did enjoy this, please be sure to leave a like rating down below. Also hit the subscribe button if you guys are new around here, and click the notification bell if you guys want to be notified every time I go live or post a new severe weather live stream. I don't post live streams. You don't post live streams. Anyway, but that's going to do it for me. I will see you guys in the next severe weather live stream or video. Take care. Peace out.